Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about why you would bring a Boomkin to your Mythic Plus group. Now, Boomkins are very strong at the moment, and I want to get it across why. A lot of people are just seeing their big burst on a boss or their massive AoE over sustain and thinking, well, they're broken, they're so strong, but actually they bring so much more utility to a group. This is something I want to do for all the classes I'm playing currently. So if you guys enjoy, please leave a comment and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Other than that, let's get into it. So there's no real order to the stuff I'm going to mention here. I'm just going to go through the utility, how it's best used, and in the situations I use it. So the first one is Innovate. I often play with a Holy Pally. He's a very, very good healer, and Innovate is kind of useless for me. But ultimately, it is something that every other healer in the game will thank you for. If I'm not on comms with a healer, I will very often just throw Innovate on them during kind of the middle of a Prideful. And that's because it's just something that helps them get through it. They can spam heal, they don't have to worry about mana, and once they get the Prideful dead, they're going to get full mana back anyway. Innovate is something that should be used quite often. I am horrible for not using it very often because, as I said, I play with a Holy Pally quite a lot. So it's one of those things that if you get right, it's a very, very powerful tool. Soothe. Soothe is one of, I believe, 3 Enrage counters in the game, and with Enrage actually being a prominent thing in a couple of dungeons, such as Halls of Atonement, as you can see in the background here. Enrage is something that you need to be able to counter at times. You look at Theatre of Pain, the second pack, or the second mob on its own in Theatre of Pain. Without a Soothe, that mob is unkillable on higher difficulties. The damage it outputs is insane. And it's just something that you've got to be careful of. And actually something that really makes it worth bringing that Boomy or that Hunter for that Trank Shot or that Soothe. But it's just another tick in the box for Boomies. Or all Druids in general, actually. The other part is Ursul's Vortex and Incapacitating Roar. Now, this depends very much so on your affinity. And I'm going to go over why they're so strong in a second. Personally, I love Ursul's Vortex. I think it's one of the strongest abilities in the game for crowd control. I quite often play with a Blood DK. Now, he's a good tank, but they are renowned for being very squishy at the moment. Well, between Ursul's Vortex, Typhoon, Mass Entanglement, all of this sort of stuff, Force of Nature, my popping trees, I can keep aggro off a tank completely risk-free to myself for about 15-20 seconds. And that is absolutely insane. There's no risk that anybody else is going to die. The tank can just walk around. Now, I can do this all at once and have 15-20 seconds of prolonged safety, or I can spread it out over a pull. And spreading it out over a pull means I get 3 or 4 seconds of safety where the tank can just recover, or the healer can top him up, or anything like that. If a pull's going bad, I can keep them controlled all by myself without any real worry. And I don't know any other class in the game that can do this quite as well at the moment. And it's something that's really overlooked. It does depend on the affinity, and at higher affinities you are going to want to be Guardian Affinity, which means you get Incapacitating Roar, which effectively is a second interrupt, by the way. It doesn't work as an interrupt, but on any trash mob, it will interrupt stuff. So you can always jump down into bear and interrupt if you have to. But Ursul's Vortex is something that if you can get used to playing with it, and get used to playing with rest of Affinity, I think it offers a lot to a group. Now let's talk about Force of Nature. It's one of the more dangerous things in our toolkit. It's an amazing ability, and if played well, it's fantastic. This week we're playing during a Sanguine week. I've already seen packs be fully healed because a druids pop trees just before a pack's going to die. It happens. And unfortunately, you've just got to be careful when you pop in them. It does lower your DPS a little bit by having trees over nature's balance, and it makes the rotation a little bit more annoying in that you don't have kind of that starting astral power in a pull. But you can work around that. You can play around that by pulling astral power from the last pack, making sure you've got sort of 50 or so to go into the next one. And there's ways to play around it, but Force of Nature in itself just offers so much utility to a group that I think you'd be silly not to run it in almost every situation. I was a big advocate of, right, I don't need to run it in this one, I've got a good tank. Ultimately, there's never a situation after about a 15 key where I wouldn't want to be running Force of Nature at the moment. Now, we have our tier 35 talent line. All of these things are useful. We have a bash, a stun. We have a mass root, which again works into that sort of CC combination I told you about of being able to keep things off a tank. We also have Heart of the Wild. Now, Heart of the Wild with Guardian Affinity, I have about 60 odd K, 70 odd K health, I believe, if not more. I have 2 Frenzied Regens. I can basically just soak mechanics by myself, no worries. Or I can go Resto Affinity and I can kick out 5-6k HPS for short periods of time, which is absolutely insane if you don't trust your healer. Now, again, like I said, I play with a very set healer very often, and I don't feel like I need this, but it is one of those things that it's nice to be able to do. If I don't trust my healer in a run, I will go Resto Affinity, I will go Heart of the Wild, and I will make sure that I can control I can help healing on the Pridefulls, I can help healing on certain bosses, if they're bosses that are particularly nasty to heal. As an example, Colth the Rock in Theatre of Pain, for the first couple of weeks of the expansion, I never did that fight without being Resto Affinity. And every time someone got the soul thing on them, the soul drain, I chucked a couple of rejuves on them. I maybe swift mended them if they were low. Just enough just to help the healer out. So again, lots of utility there. Cyclone. Now, Cyclone is something that's widely underused in Mythic Plus. It's not great, but it is another form of CC. If things going bad, chuck a Cyclone on something. It's a quick little interrupt. And that's, if you play it like it's an interrupt, it's fantastic. Hibernate, not quite as good as other CCs in the game, but it is something that actually still offers a lot of utility. There's a lot of beasts in the current expansion, or there's a few beasts in the current expansion that might need a bit of CC, and it does help. Stampeding Roar is an amazing AoE speed increase, especially with the conduit, the finesse conduit that's out at the moment that increases the duration and radius. You're going to hit your whole group, and it's going to last a while as well. I think it's a fantastic ability. It's probably a little bit strong. For the amount of utility we have, it's probably a little bit strong that we also have that, but hey, it's something that I'm not going to deny. We also have combat res. We are one of a few classes in the game that have a combat res. It's very important that, again, every group will need some form of combat res. It's just, unfortunately, a mandatory thing. Solar Beam. Now, Solar Beam's a weird interrupt. We have a 1 minute cooldown on our interrupt, which makes us one of the weakest, if not the weakest class at interrupting stuff in the game. Now, you can multi-interrupt and interrupt 2 or 3 things at the same time if they're all stood on top of each other. It's not reliable. And if Solar Beam worked as how I believe it was intended to work, it would keep everything silenced that stood in the beam. Now, I don't think this works quite as well as it should in PvE, but it is something that it's still an interrupt. You can still clip 2 or 3 targets and it's still quite strong if played in perfect scenarios. Other than that, it's still an interrupt and it's still something that's going to be used quite a lot. We also have Curse and Poison Dispels. Again, there's a few classes in the game that can do one or both or neither. You're going to want that in most dungeons at the moment. There's almost always Halls of Atonement has a curse. I believe Spires has a poison that you want to dispel. There's all sorts of different places that have certain abilities that you're going to want to have a dispel for. And this is about just making your perfect group composition. I think, again, this is where Boomy fits into so many groups right now. We also have Typhoon, which again works into that whole CC. And we also have kind of the whole thing that spec is built around at the moment. We don't have amazing burst AoE. If I pop all of my cooldowns, I can probably compete to 20, 25k DPS, but I'm very well geared. Ultimately, you're not going to be competing with a Fire Mage for that at the moment. We're just not. But we have incredible single target burst to a point. If I run double on use, I'm hitting almost 30k DPS on pulls. We've also got very, very good sustained AoE with obviously Starfall uptime, especially with Stellar Drift being so strong now. And ultimately, we just bring so much to a group. So guys, I'm going to leave this here. I hope you guys got a lot out of this and you learned something in this video. If there's anything else you want to know about Boomies or any other classes specifically you would like me to do this for, please let me know in the comments below. Again, guys, I'm trying to make these videos a little bit more regular than just sort of once or twice a week. So if you are enjoying, if you have anything else you'd like to know, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later. Goodbye, guys.